I've heard somebody say before, people often teach what they need. Right. And, if I had a podcast like this when I was growing up, right. I think it'd be, we have the Gary V's and stuff like that, but right. I didn't have somebody that was my age, right. Speaking about topics and stuff like that. Right. So,
well, sometimes it's kind of funny how you bring that up, because it's almost like how it can be a good message, but if it comes from a different source, you may not listen to it. Mm-hmm. Like, for example, how if you know you're supposed to work out, but your parents tell you to work out, you're like, whatever. But then, your ripped friend tells you, hey, you should work out. And you're like, man, I should work out.
I'm getting into it.
Yeah, exactly. So, hopefully we'll be able to help some people out in some way by the show. And just, I feel like we just do it. Half the reason we started just for us, to be able to to document our conversations and just to do that.
And it's a great time too.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah, man. So let's get into it.
I was about to say. So we got a hot and heavy one today.
Yeah, very man. You wanna lead us off,
bro? Before I even get into it, I think for me, man, I've noticed how and is it just me, or does it feel like there's a lot of breakups happening right now? Like possibly. It's funny how we're going to the end of the summer.
Oh wait, no, yes. Now that you know that, I know 3 people that's broken up.
Yeah, I was gonna say, man. I know a lot of people who are breaking up right now, and so I just wonder, there's something in the air, because normally what happens is right before summer is when everyone breaks up. But I feel like we're going into hoodie season and what do they call it? Like cuffing season?
Cuff season.
Yeah, it's about to go into cuffing season, and I don't know, man. It's weird to see everyone break up right now.
Yeah, but I think that there's a book by Jim Rohn called Seasons of Life, and actually I was going to order it today. Yeah. And the premise of the book is, through life you go through different seasons. You go through, summer, winter, fall, and in each one, I think in spring is when you reap the harvest. Right. And so I say that to say, in relationships, I feel like you go through that same swing where it's like, these relationships are going good, they're growing, stuff like that. And then you just reach this point where it's like, we're just not seeing in the right, we're not seeing in the same space. We're just not thinking the same. And sometimes you have to separate. Well,
I mean, sometimes it sounds so general, but sometimes things just do change. Like how you'll feel one way in a certain season, and then some things change and now you feel differently. Yeah, I think to me, that's always been something that I've had to work on for myself, was focusing on, hey, man, it's okay to change your opinion. You know what I mean? It's okay to get new information and be able to adapt to that. Because I think a lot of times, I'll just come up with my own, game plan and just be able to, dig my heels in, I'm going to feel about this way about this topic forever. And it's no, you got to be able to adapt and change and be okay with that.
Yeah, a principle that I learned, too, is that, as humans, we aren't static, right? We are liable to change. And so that kind of brings me to cancel culture a little bit, which that wasn't even the first topic.
We're not even planning on talking about this, but
that brings me to cancel culture. When you see somebody did something 20, 30 years, 5 years ago, even 2 years ago, and then they, keep them into that person, oh, you did that and you're a bad person and it's over. They're like, hey, no, I made a mistake and I'm not the same person anymore.
Right. Well, no, it's definitely cancel culture is weird to me, because it almost says you can't make a mistake at any point in your entire life ever.
Yeah, it's stupid, because that's not human beings. That's not how human beings evolve. That's not how human people take things in. It's like, I say this all the time. If someone sees me today and then doesn't see me in the next 2 years, when you see me the next time, I should be a completely different person. It's just, when people are like, oh, you're just the same. I'm like, whoa.
Bro, low-key, when people say that, I think it's almost insulting.
Yeah.
Because to me, and what I hear from that, I know it's meant to be a good thing, but when I hear that, I think you haven't progressed.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's also something in somebody being stable.
That's also
because I don't want to miss that too, because there's some people who've consistently been who they are, and that's why they're so strong. Right. So it's you're just consistently being that person. You're a consistent happy person. You're whatever that consistency is, you consistently show up in the world like that. So I don't want to take those people out, because those people are important as well.
Well, and I think for some people, I think we're the stable people sometimes. For our friends, and we have people who we see as really stable. So it's almost you need those people that are consistent.
Right.
You know what I mean? That you know what you're getting. I'm a big stability person, so I feel whenever I know that people are going to be the same pretty much every day, I like to be around those people, because I feel we're going the right direction, Right.
So I guess that being said, there's nothing wrong with being stagnant necessarily, but I think that there are places in your life that you should grow in, but some people do. And because there's always the good and bad, right? There's the people who just stick to what they know and then that's it. Right. But I don't think that we're like that. We want to learn and get better at things. But I guess our core identity does stay the same.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, guys, we're not even planning on talking about that.
Yeah, no,
we came here with a completely different topic. So
it popped into my but you could go into what you were saying.
No. So I think to me, man, it's a big part of the show, like we don't come in with a lot of scripts or like a formula of what we want to talk about. Like to me, I just want to be able to just live my life and have these lessons come up and then to be able to talk about them almost after. So to me, a big topic that's been floating around recently is the idea of like hookup culture and like relationships and catching feelings. And that's been a big topic for this week for me, for sure. And so I think that like, just to talk about that a little bit, I think would be important just because I think a lot of people have, it's almost weird to me how, oh man, I was talking to a friend and this is something that he said that I think a lot of people would relate to. So I had a friend that just got out of a breakup and he said something that I thought was really interesting, how he said that he never really went from, because there's this talking stage. So you're talking and then you go from talking to a relationship. So to me, he said something that was interesting in that he never felt like he went from talking to a relationship. He felt like his relationship was almost an extended talking phase, which is really interesting. And I feel like a lot of people have done that to where they don't go from talking to relationship. They just feel like they keep on talking.
And you know why? Because people don't do relationships intentionally anymore. So people are just getting into these casual things except for, so it's, it's like this hookup culture. There's all that kind of stuff. Right. So we're getting into really casual relationships instead of going deep. Now, you can be on my side where it's like everything is so serious because I definitely think there needs to be a balance. But in that same vein, there are people who are just getting in relationships to degree in relationships. And so that's where the mix of just, hey, we were talking and then now we're in a relationship. Yeah. You didn't really, especially as a man, not setting the tone, being like, hey, you know what?
Like, what I think we are.
Yes.
Like, what's the plan?
Right, and really set in stone. No, this is my girlfriend, and that's it.
No, 100%. I mean, because for me, man, like it's almost funny to me how like certain people say that because like it's so out of line with my personality because I'm very much like claim it. And I think if anything, I might claim things too early. And so to me, it's kind of interesting how like a lot of people have this like mentality of just talking and we're just kind of loose with it, no labels. And I don't know, man. I think a lot of that stuff just comes from a place of trying to protect themselves emotionally, maybe. So that way, if they never label it as a relationship and all this other stuff, that like they almost protect themselves from what they feel like would be an inevitable breakup.
Well, I think in relationships too, there's this tango. There's just like, ebb and flows, filling out the person. And so I can understand how somebody could go from talking to an extended talking instead of labeling it. But when you do things like that, you never really have an outline of what this thing is.
Right.
So it's just kind of you're going through, and then so when something happens, it's like, oh, we were just talking.
Right.
So and you don't take it with the same seriousness as you should.
Right.
So it's just like, oh, we're talking. This.
Well, and it's almost like and I think we're very intentional people. So I think mostly everything I do has like an end goal in mind. So for me, it's like I will never get into a relationship and risk my emotional well-being for somebody that I don't see as really my wife. So it's like a lot of these people are getting into these relationships and I'm like, for what? Like, I think a lot of people should just stay talking and they shouldn't get into a relationship because they're not actually serious about what a relationship even means anymore. And people are kind of getting lost in like, why do people date anymore? Why, where is this going? And a lot of people, man, I think it takes some discipline to be able to have some self-awareness and realize that, hey, maybe I shouldn't be in a relationship right now.
Well, because nowadays, all relationships, the only outcome is sex. So it's like we're not going into this thing to grow something. We're going in this thing to have a sex partner. We're not going in to have a life partner or somebody to learn from and to grow together. It's like, hey, are we having sex and going to the movies? That's good enough for me.
That's a date nowadays, right?
Yeah, and so that's a lot of this hookup culture, especially, 20, 23, 22. Yeah. We see those things where it's just like, and even in high school, there were so many people. I remember talking to people just about sex. Like, it was like me and like 3 people around me were just talking, and they were interested in what I was saying because I wasn't just like, yo, have sex with whoever. I was like, no, protect that, man and woman. And I think it has in the Christian world, sometimes we try to look at women like protect that role, like some weird stuff. Yeah. And I think that it's not even that. I think it should be man and woman should protect their body and to protect the other person.
Well, it's the emotional standpoint. I think people don't consider the emotions of it all. And I think to me, like we talked about this like kind of before the show, how it's not like God is the fun police and he wants you to like not have sex with beautiful women or not have sex with guys you find attractive or whatever. It's like he's doing like, why did he say what he said? He said that to protect you emotionally. And I think people don't acknowledge the emotional bonding that comes with sex. Sex is a bonding mechanism. So what happens is when you're having sex with these people you don't care about, what really is happening is conditioning you to be numb. And then once you're numb, when you actually find that person you want to be with, you're going to have a hard time connecting with them, which I think is really scary.
And I will say one thing: people who don't share the same worldview as we do,
Right.
I still say listen with an open mind, just to hear our point and hear where we're coming from. Because I know, I was just about to go into this whole Bible thing, but I do think that sex is meant for one woman, one man, in a marriage, and I think it's done like that. And you can see that just in the culture, right? How people are just having sex with whoever and all this kind of stuff, and then at the end of the day still feel empty. For instance, there's a lot of guys out here having sex with tons of girls, and then there's no end goal. They still feel empty inside because they're not really connecting themselves with a woman and really learning about them and learning what marriage is and all that kind of stuff.
Or even care. You know what I mean? I think we're at a point now where it just feels like a physical exchange. It's not even it's not even about bonding or even liking somebody anymore. Yeah, which to me I think is a really scary thing, because I think that's almost a direct shot at relationships. Yeah, which we're kind of seeing now. Like, we're seeing people not really wanting to get married anymore. We're seeing, on some Kevin Samuels stuff, we're seeing 6-year relationships, 9-year relationships, and it's like, man, like I don't know about anybody else, man, but I feel like within a year I would know if I'm gonna marry somebody.
Well, I'll take that. That's the man's fault,
personally.
At the end of the day, I think if you're in a 6-year relationship, then you don't want to be with her if you're not getting married.
I mean, because I'm sorry. Go ahead. Yeah.
No.
I was just gonna jump in and say, even on once again, like referring to Kevin Samuels again, how I think it's kind of an equal thing, because I think on one side it's the guy's fault for not sealing the deal and putting a ribbon on this thing, but at the same time I think it also is on the woman for not kind of pressing more and be like, hey, like if you do want that, then you should kind of not really wait around if he's not giving you what you feel like you want.
I agree with that, but I think if I was to say I'm a man in Christ, all that kind of stuff, I think the situation, wrong or right, is on the man. So if you're not making this happen and going for it, then you need to let her go as the man in the relationship, because in the Bible, it shows us in different situations where men are supposed to step up, men are supposed to be the head of the house and all that kind of stuff.
Set the tone.
Yeah, so setting the tone. So if you're a man in the relationship and you're just letting this go, it's your fault. That's what I think, at least. Yeah. But I do think women do need to take accountability and just like, go ahead, queen, go have sex with a whole bunch of. I don't agree with that.
It's kind of like the same question that we're asking to the guys as well. It's like, what do you want? Like, what do the girls want? You know what I mean? It's like, are they kind of wanting a quick exchange as well, or you actually want marriage at the end of this thing? Like, I think just having some self-awareness and understanding who you are and what you want, I think is really important, to be able to set a tone, and that way you don't get hurt. Because sometimes, like, you might potentially enter into a relationship with somebody, but they're on completely different pages about what they think this is. Because like you might have one person who thinks this is an extended talking phase and we're just hanging out, and we got another person who's like, no, I'm gonna marry
my wife.
Yeah, I've got my wife.
Yeah.
So to be able to have that tone, I think, that's why I think communication is so important, bro. You have to be able to talk. You have to be able to be honest, even if it's tough. You know what I mean? Because I think there's a lot of times where people did just talk. They'd probably save themselves a lot of heartbreak.
Yeah, and I think what saves you a lot of heartbreak is stop looking at sex as transactional, like you said a moment ago. Because I think, when you go into something with clarity and it's like, oh, I'm not just going to have sex with this person. Like, actually, what would my life look like if I was with this person for the next 3 years? Instead of just like, what would my life look like today when I have sex?
Right. Well, and I was about to ask a question, too, that I think would get a lot of people thinking is, would you be with that person if you couldn't have sex with them?
Exactly. Yeah.
Because I think there's a lot of relationships right now
question.
that the sex is the glue, and that once that stops for whatever reason, I think the whole thing just explodes. Which I think speaks to the fact that you don't even really like them.
Well, I think that speaks to the desire of a human, too, because, at the end of the day, because Christians always do this when they talk about sex, and it's basically like it's this bad thing, or,
by no means am I saying any of that for sure. Oh, and I think also just something that, like, as we talk about, our opinions, our beliefs, our values, and stuff like that, we're just following what we feel personally convicted to do, just based on our belief systems and our values. Like, and by no way are we claiming that we're saints. You know what I mean?
No.
Like, I'm not perfect believer. I'm not some moral standard that you should hold
Neither
to.
am I.
You know what I mean? I got my own little stuff going on.
No, same here.
So I think just having some awareness with that, and so like we want to be able to help you guys the best way that we can, and be able to provide some insight based on our own experiences. But by no way am I claiming that like I'm the map you should be following.
No, I'm just telling you the map that I live by. That's why it's called Atlas Experience.
Exactly. I'm just telling you. I'm not telling you like this is like the map. I'm just telling you this is my map. Like this is how I'm playing the game.
Right, and we
life.
can even like that's just funny that you said Matt because Atlas experience Matt that we follow. Like if you know, that's hard.
Right, no, exactly.
But just getting back to the whole relationship thing. I think especially if you're younger, don't rush to have sex. I think that's everyone's goal, especially when people are around you, like having sex, all that kind of stuff. Their initial thing is just like, I'm going to have sex because that's what everyone else is doing.
Right.
And I think that's so dangerous because you get to places that you wouldn't have gone if you went down to that path.
Well, no, and there's I was even talking to someone else about this as well, how like even talking about like your first kiss, having sex for the first time, all these different things. I feel like a lot of people are like, oh, I'm this age, so I should have done this by. Like I was talking to this girl who said that, she basically forced her first kiss because she didn't want to be to a certain age and not had her first kiss yet.
Wow.
And I was like, that's really interesting. Like how many people have done that? They have their almost like own social pressure of like, I'm not kissing this person because I want to kiss them. I'm kissing them because I don't want to be. Yeah, because of society or pressure that I feel like I have to do this by this age. I have to do that by this age or,
Well, and that reverberates over the culture in its entirety. When you look at people going to college, when you people doing this, like all of it is from a place of culture. Oh, I'm this age. I need to have that. I need to have this happen. Which I do think there's some solid things in that were like, should you be a 30-year-old man and still with your parents? No. Right. So I think
there's some healthy pushes that happen.
Yeah.
Which I think is normal.
Yeah, but I think, especially saying sexually, like kind of going further than what you would have just because of this social pressure, it's kind of sad,
Oh, for sure. I mean, especially with something like the topic of what it is. Like, we're talking about bonding, we're talking about emotions, we're talking about, we believe spiritually. There's a lot of stuff that happens with that. And so to be playing around with that, I feel like it's dangerous because you're also toying with your emotions, you're toying with your spiritual well-being, like even like your own intuition. Like, because we were talking about this too, man. Like once you really get feelings for somebody, your logic gets really hazy, and it's really easy to get lost in the sauce of of your feelings and what you want things to be and what you hope things could be versus what they actually are. And so that's why I think it's we talk about this all the time, but like having people that will say hard things to you out of love to be able to guide you. Because sometimes, man, like it's hard to see when you're the one in it. It's easy to like watch someone else and be able to point, oh, they should just do that. But when you're in it, you're like, I don't know what's going on.
Yeah. I completely agree. I think, and this is something that we talk about all the time because I feel like it's so true for us. Yeah. Like, who's around you thing. But, like you said, having somebody on the outside to be like, hey, man, that's not it.
Well, and I heard this quote by Shannon Sharp. We talked about, I'm not going to tell you what you want to hear. I'm going to tell you what you need to know. And I was just like, man, that really hit. Because, I mean, how many friends do you really... And to me, that's how I gauge a real friend. About, would you tell me something that I don't want to hear? You know what I mean? Like, if I think this is a good idea, if I'm going to date some girl I shouldn't be with or whatever, would you get in my way and say something out of love for my own well-being?
And even that resistance right there... Honestly, that lets you know that how much the person, cares for the fact that, like, even if you're not going to like this, I'm saying that.
Well, and even that, like, you would be willing to put your friendship on the line. Because you know what I mean? Especially if we are talking about relationships and stuff. Like, I mean, how many...
It gets close.
Yeah, I mean, how many friends have split up because of a girl? Or how many, same thing with, like, a guy. Like, how many girls have split up with their friends because of a guy? So I think you being willing to risk the friendship to be able to say something that you feel like the person needs to hear is important. I think even for the person receiving it, also to trust the person that's standing in your way by actually saying, hey, like they wouldn't say this if they weren't concerned and they weren't trying to help me.
Right.
Yeah. So that way we don't talk about, taking advice from a whole bunch of people. That's why I only have like we talk about this all the time, but 3 to 5 people who I really will listen to. Because most people I'm not going to listen to respectfully.
Right.
But there's like 3 people who I would, even against my own intuition or my own instincts, like I would stop.
It's like, let me see what that person's thinking about the situation. I have the same thing.
And it does get you to think, you know what I mean? Like, man, like I really trust this person. I feel like this person has my best interest at heart and they're saying something. It's like, man, like, do I need to...
It's like, hold on, I got to check myself.
Do I need to check some stuff?
Yeah. No, I think that's great. But I do want to touch back because I don't think... people know how important sex is in that because it really is. And I keep on harboring back on it only because it's so important in our culture and how many people just are having sex just to have sex and not even giving it a first thought, but just like, oh, I need to have my first. I need to lose my virginity. I need to lose my virginity. And not really going into it like, okay, why do I want to lose my virginity right now? Like why? You know, that's a good question.
Well, because I think like you're always gonna have, especially like as guys, like I mean, even girls as well. I mean, everybody, right? Like,
right.
Everyone wants to.
But
have
I'm only
sex.
speaking from an experience that I know.
Like
about.
I said, I mean, guys, like there's no like everyone wants to have sex, of course.
Everyone,
of course,
including me.
Yeah, like,
you know
of course.
Yeah.
And so to me, it's like, that's not the question. The question is talking about who are you bonding with, why are you doing the things that you're doing, and stuff like that. I mean, because it's you can get yourself in some crazy situations by just being blinded by your own desire for someone. Like you do things that you normally wouldn't do. You overlook things that you normally wouldn't overlook. And that can be a really dangerous place to be because you start not even acting like yourself anymore.
Mm-hmm. And if you don't think that's true, that sex is just transactional, then look at several other cultures, look at several other even religions and see what they say about sex. You know, even science, even in science they say, no, like we don't quite know what's going on, but it's more than just a physical thing.
Oh no, I mean there's so many studies on this, like 400 I mean it's not even like our opinions, based on our, religious beliefs. Like there are scientific studies that show, for example, like the likelihood of your marriage being successful based on how many partners you've had sex with. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a real study. Like that's not a, what I mean? That's, I know that's kind of controversial to say, especially in 2021, especially, that's a lot of talking to a lot of our own people right now as far as our age group, but that's a real thing. And I think for me, like I've always been very guarded about my connections, about who I catch feelings for, because I'm the type of person to where, not that I don't care, but it takes a lot for me to really care about someone. Yeah. But once I do, I care a lot. Like this person can really, like mess me up emotionally. Mm-hmm.
Oh, it looks like YouTube is off. So if you
want
to listen,
we got cut off right there.
You're good. YouTube peeps, go over to Spotify or Apple Podcasts.
Yeah, and comment down below topics that you would want us to talk about. We're always down to be able to engage with you guys. So who knows? Maybe your topic will end up on the next show.
Yes, sir. And like I said, I do want to get some type of thing where somebody could, not just in the comments, but if they want to do it anonymously. Yeah. I want to figure out a way so people could send stuff in. Because sometimes, like I have a question, but I don't want to say it.
Right. Yeah, like you asking for, that should be the title of the podcast, Asking for a Friend, where we just go through we go through questions that people have, and we just do a little Q&A. I think that'd be fun.